So, this will be a follow-up for that video I did the other day. So, I was just out of the blue. It felt like, to me, it was just out of the blue. I felt like I was attacked. Not brutally or anything crazy like that, but just, I felt like they had an agenda, and just kind of took it out on me. It was kind of a bad deal. So anyway, I read what was written by this other person and also by myself, the back and forth. And it still feels like it just came out of left field. Like, why do you care? But anyway, then I wrote this later in the day and posted it. I said, to the people who rebuked me for caring for my mom, you suggested that hiring a babysitter for my mom would be cheaper than a divorce. And the exact words were, how much is your marriage worth? And then that was followed with divorces are $5,000 plus. And I'm just staring at the screen and I'm thinking, why would you say that? You know, I'm working my tail end off, doing the best I can for my family and for my mom. But anyway, you accused me of having my priorities out of order. Like taking care of my mom was wrong. Like somehow taking care of my mom was detrimental to my well-being and that of my family, and et cetera and so forth. And I had no idea where that comes from. You told me to be humble and pray about this. I pray about a lot of things, but I don't think praying about should I care for my mom or not is even on the table. It's an automatic. There are autonomous actions in life. And following the 10 Commandments, honor thy mother and thy father, is, I think, the second commandment. So that apparently was enough of a priority that they put it in the 10 Commandments. Honor thy mother and thy father. And then in Mark 10, it does, she reminds me here, she says, when I reminded you of the commandment to honor thy mother and thy father, you reminded me of the passage that says, for this cause shall a man leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife. In other words, when you reach a certain age, your hormones and everything else start to stir, and you start to desire, and you want to form your own family. So you leave your mother and father, you go form your family, and you move away in order to do so. But families still got together. Families still, you know, I mean, if you went far enough, I guess some people disappeared and never came back. But if your family is close by, you stay in touch with them, you take care of them, and if they need you, you go help them. You don't abandon your parents. I think that's just ridiculous. But anyway, then they got upset and blocked me from Facebook. So I said, even though you'll never read this unless someone else shows it to you, I present 1 Timothy chapter 5, especially the first half of the chapter, and particularly verse 8, which reads, anyone who does not provide for their relatives, and especially for their own household, has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. We have a duty to care for our biological families who are in need as much as we are able, so they do not become a burden on the church, who has been charged with caring for orphans and widows. This chapter is sage advice from Paul to Timothy, who was building and strengthening his church in Ephesus. It's written directly to Timothy instead of a group of people, so it's often missed, but it's an important scripture nonetheless. I do not think for a second that the scripture telling us to leave our parents and cleave to our wives in Mark 10 means abandoning them and leaving them to their own demise. I find it very disturbing that you even suggested it in that manner. To the contrary, 1 Timothy 5:4 reads, "But if a widow has children or grandchildren, these should learn, first of all, to put the religion into practice by caring for their own family, and so repaying their parents and grandparents, for this is pleasing to God." Again, this is more about church building, but what Paul is telling Timothy is that if a widow has children or grandchildren, they should be caring for their own family instead of the church. In doing this, the church was able to help those who have no one else. Now, I can hire somebody to care for mom, but services like that are very expensive, and while mom has some savings, it will not last long with such a financial burden. I can help financially, but then my finances will be in a mess as well. Other than Liz and I, my mom has no one else to reach out to for help, and it is my duty and my duty alone to bear. My wife's not obligated in any way, shape, or form to help in any way, but she cooks extra so that I can make a portion and take it to mom. Rebuking me for doing what is pleasing to God is not acceptable. I believe beyond the shadow of doubt my priorities are in order with God's will, and that I'm following Scripture by caring for my mom. Is this a burden on me? Yeah, it is. Is this a burden on my wife? You bet, it is. Is it a burden on relationship? Yeah, it is. Not denying that this is a burden. But knowing that it's a burden allows me to take steps to mitigate the burdens and make sure that the time that I have with my wife is not wasted time. We have learned to cherish our time together. It's not a new lesson either. Our marriage survived an arduous operation tempo more than once while I was in the Navy. I was gone for weeks and months at a time. Now I'm only gone for an hour in the morning, mostly after my wife's at work, so she's not even here anyway, and for either an hour and a half or 2 hours in the evening while I'm cleaning at mom's. Liz is cleaning our house, and then we have the rest of the evening to spend together. Believe me, taking care of mom is nothing compared to being on the other side of the world when my son was born. If our marriage can survive all of that, I think our marriage is strong enough to survive this. And that's the end of the post. But the other thing that I will say is that we've been married 29 years. We're coming up on 30 years. We'll celebrate our 30-year anniversary in April. And I got to tell you, marriage is hard. We could end up separating at some point, but I do not think for a second, not 1 second, that separation would have been caused by me taking care of my mom. It's just not. There's other things in life. There's other things in our relationship that could cause us to split, but taking care of mom's not one of them. I mean, it could be another little needle on the haystack, and eventually you break the camel's back. But seriously, suggesting that I should abandon my mom and not take care of her, hire somebody out. I don't know where you come from, but I'm not rich. I have some nice things, but I saved and bought things on credit that I shouldn't have, and then worked really hard to pay it off. Man, you know, Liz and I are not perfect people. We might get a divorce one day. I hope not, but we might. I mean, it could happen, but it will not be because I took care of my mom. It just won't. So anyway, I'm gonna get off of here. I have other things I want to say, but I want to shift topics and move on to something else. So y'all have a beautiful day.